The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, throughout the course of history, when our nation has faced its most significant debates over matters of war, there comes a time when voices of pundits and politicians must drop away and allow the voices of the people to be heard. Our troops are brave and capable. They have fought heroically, and this resolution makes it unequivocally clear that those of us who feel it incumbent to oppose the President's escalation nonetheless support our troops. All of us and all Americans support our troops. But Congress also has an oversight responsibility to ensure that they are provided a mission based on a realistic assessment and an achievable goal before we ask them to risk life and limb to implement it. The President has asked Congress to support his escalation plan to send another 20,000 troops to Iraq. This war is now almost 4 years long. Congress has not spoken as loudly and as clearly as its responsibility requires. As the representative of the 13th District of Ohio, I cannot stay silent. I oppose the President's plan for escalation, and I fully support this resolution. The President's own military commanders have advised against this course of action. And in November, my constituents and the American people voted for a change of direction in Iraq. Escalation is directly contradictory to that call for change. It takes us further down the wrong path, deeper and deeper, with a policy that asks our military to perform a non-military mission of creating a unified government in Iraq. But unity in Iraq has to be determined by the people who live there. It is neither fair nor just to ask our troops to fix a sectarian civil war. Our nation has paid a high price. The lives of 3,000 American troops lost. $379 billion spent, with another $8 billion every month of this war. These lives cannot be retrieved. 139 brave men and women from Ohio have been killed, 14 from my district. I have a responsibility to every one of those casualties and to every one that might lie ahead to represent their voices, especially those that can no longer be heard. In early August 2005, Lance Corporal Edward Augie Schroeder II was killed in Iraq. Augie and 13 other young lives from Northeast Ohio were lost that day. In January 2006, Augie's father, Paul Schroeder, shared his thoughts and feelings in a letter to the Washington Post entitled, "A Life Wasted." He said, quote, "Since August, we have witnessed growing opposition to the Iraq War, but it is often whispered, hands covering mouths, as if it's too dangerous to speak too loudly. Others discuss the never-ending cycle of death in places like Haditha in academic and sometimes clinical fashion, as in the, quote, increasing lethality of improvised explosive devices, end quote." Wiping the clinical talk away, Paul Schroeder went on to share the painful reality that he and his family face, a reality that cannot be understood when sanitized by clinical terms. He said, quote, "Listen to the kinds of things that most Americans don't have to experience. The day Augie's unit returned from Iraq to Camp Lejeune, we received a box of his notebooks, DVDs, and clothes from his locker in Iraq. The day his unit returned home to waiting families, we received the second urn of ashes. This lad of promise, of easy charm and readiness to help, whose highest high was saving someone using CPR as a first aid squad volunteer, came home in one coffin and 2 urns. We buried him in 3 places that he loved. A fitting irony, I suppose, but just as rough each time," end quote. Mr. Speaker, The growing opposition to the war in Iraq must not be whispered, hands covering mouths, as if it is too dangerous to speak too loudly. Accountability and oversight require more. This resolution rings loud and clear. We support our troops and we oppose the President's plan to escalate in Iraq. Will the President hear our collective voice? If he does not, it will not be because we sat silent.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman from New Jersey.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield this time just 30 seconds to the gentleman for a unanimous consent request.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to have my name removed as a co-sponsor of H.R. 654.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Gentleman
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield